What is up guys, it's Aaron from Rudy Visuals, and in today's video we're going to talk about why we switched over to Sony, kind of. So to preface this video, we are hybrid shooters in terms of we do make an actual living from portrait photography, but also we do quite a lot of video work as well. Now, for those of you who have been watching our channel for a while, we've been using the A7 III for a really long time as our sort of main video camera. And unfortunately, this box is all that's left of our A7 III. We sold it on to my friend Dan. So bye A7 III. Now, of course, we also have a 6D Mark II, but that's mainly like a stills camera. We don't really use it for video too often. The A7 III has been an absolute workhorse for us, but we did end up having to sell it for a few reasons. So the A7 III is still an amazing camera, but for the kinds of jobs that we were being offered, it just wasn't really doing it in terms of features. So often we had to actually rent a camera. So we figured we'd stop wasting money on rental fees and just buy a new camera. Now, we were actually really stuck choosing between the Sony A7 III and the Canon EOS R. Ultimately, we went with the A7 III because overall, features-wise, it was the better video camera. And here it is. We've had it now for around about a couple of weeks and we've been really happy with it so far. Just got the one lens with it so far, which is the Tamron 28-75, which is a sort of good jack of all trades kind of lens. And here are the main reasons why we bought this camera. Right, so the first reason is the dual card slot. So this camera actually is the first camera we've ever owned that has 2 card slots. So that means whenever we are on a paid shoot, we know for a fact that everything is backed up. We have a second copy just in case a memory card fails. Now, I have never personally had a memory card fail on me, but you just have to Google search this and see how many people have actually had card failures when they were shooting really important stuff like weddings or special occasions. So definitely that was a major reason why we chose the A7 III over the Canon EOS R. I cannot imagine what it would feel like to have to tell a client, oh my God, we lost all your photos or all your video footage from the day because our card broke. So yeah, dual card slots was reason number 1. Next up are the actual video specs of the Sony A7 III. I mean, this thing is such a huge upgrade over the Canon A7 III in terms of video features. So first of all, it can shoot in 4K, high bitrate 4K. You can also shoot in RAW, you can shoot in S-Log, Cine 4. There is just so many more options in terms of video formats, which has made this a huge upgrade over our Canon cameras. Another big video feature is the fact that you can shoot in 120 FPS. Now, we've actually had a few clients ask us, can you shoot super slow motion? And previously we could only shoot at 60 FPS. And if we wanted to shoot at 120 FPS, we'd have to hire a camera, which was typically a 1DX Mark II, which is pretty expensive to hire. Now we have the option here with the A7 III, we can shoot 120 FPS if we need to. Now that is only at 1080p. However, compared to some of the Canon cameras and some of the other competition, I believe at this current time, the 1DX Mark II is the only camera that can shoot at 120 FPS in 1080p with full autofocus and no GIMP features. I know the EOS R does also have 120 FPS, but I think it's at 720p. With the Sony A7 III, you have 120 FPS in 1080p and with continuous autofocus. The 1DX Mark II has pretty nice 120 FPS in our experience, but it's £5,000 compared to this, which we paid about $1,600 for. So yeah, Canon, you need to step up your game. Next for us is a huge game changer. The A7 III has IAF. This is a huge game changer for us because we can basically point to a model or even a pet, a cat, a dog, or a bird, and it automatically finds the eye for you. We found it to be really consistent, and you know for a fact that that eye is going to be sharp and in focus. So for us, that is a huge upgrade. Going back to video, the IAF doesn't actually work in video, unfortunately, but you do have very reliable face detect. We've had no issues with this. Basically, when you're shooting a video, you'll get a little gray box that appears and it will track the face as it moves around. So in terms of the autofocus, yeah, the Canons are probably a 10, I'd say, but the A7 III for me is still a very solid 9 out of 10 in terms of autofocus. So yeah, great for video shooting. My next reason is because this is a mirrorless camera, you have an electronic viewfinder. Now this saves you so much time chimping and trying to see if your image is like properly exposed, what the aperture looks like. You look through the viewfinder and literally what you see in the viewfinder is the result you're gonna get. And this for us is like another huge game changer. If you've never used a mirrorless camera and you're using an EVF for the first time, you're just gonna be like, wow, how have I lived without this? Next up, this is a full frame mirrorless camera. So that full frame sensor, you're gonna get better low light performance. You're gonna get much better dynamic range, better color depth, better depth of field. Basically going from a crop sensor camera to a full frame is a really, really big upgrade. You can still get really good results with a crop sensor camera, don't get me wrong, but there is a reason why most of the higher end cameras are full frame sensors. There's lots of videos on YouTube on why a full frame camera is better than a crop sensor camera. So definitely recommend you do some research on that. Next point, it is a mirrorless camera. This is actually the second mirrorless camera we've owned. We have used a Canon M50 before, which is a really nice light camera. Now this is a little bit heavier than the M50, but it's so much lighter than the ATD. When we had the ATD and the Sigma 18-35, that is a heavy combination. And then you put that on top of a gimbal and you're filming all day like this or like this. It feels like you've been in the gym. Literally, I was getting jacked just carrying the camera around. Whereas this, like, it's such a huge difference. It's so light, it's so much easier to carry around. If you're someone like a travel vlogger and you move around quite a lot, you're definitely gonna appreciate that change in weight. Another reason why we bought this camera is all of our old Canon EF lenses can still be used with the Sony A7 III with the use of an adapter. That means that all those full frame lenses that we owned haven't gone to waste. There's no need to sell them. Maybe we can still use them with our Sony A7 III. My final reason for choosing this Sony A7 III is the price. I mean, this thing is, feature-wise, is such a beast for the price. Like I said, the EOS R is similarly priced, but it's actually a little bit more expensive, but with a lot less features wise. The 1DX Mark II has very similar features, but is so much more expensive. So just for the price itself, this is such a beast for the price. So for me personally, that was a really big factor in choosing the A7 III. Now this video isn't me saying that the A7 III is suddenly like the best camera you can buy. There are problems with the camera. Neither is this me saying that Sony is better than Canon or Canon is better than Sony. But in our situation, our two Canon cameras that we owned were holding us back, and this A7 III actually solves a lot of our issues. This is pretty much why we made the switch from Canon to Sony. Now I want to end this video by actually saying that at every single price point, there are a lot of options for people, and we pretty much live in like a golden era of cameras. There are so many great cameras out there now with features that you couldn't even dream about maybe 10, even 5 years ago. So the fact that we have so many options now is for me really cool. So if anyone tells you that this camera is better than this camera or this camera is better than this camera, just remember there is no best camera. It's what's best for you. Anyway, hopefully that was useful to you guys. Give it a like and subscribe if you're new here. Check out our website, www.rudyvisuals.com, if you're interested in seeing more of our work. And that's pretty much gonna do it. I'm actually gonna go to the dentist now because I'm getting my wisdom teeth pulled out. So wish me luck. Anyway, bye.